Welcome to PSY 318, Study Session 8, Child Abuse and Neglect. Introduction. Child abuse is a problem that affects many children and has an enormous impact on their psychological development. This lecture will make you to understand the early detection of child abuse, prevalence of child abuse, the forms of child abuse, and the treatment which helps parents to deal with child abuse. Objectives. At the end of the lecture, you should be able to 1. Explain child abuse, 2. Describe the forms of child abuse, and 3. Describe the treatment of child abuse. Pretest. 1. Explain what is meant by child abuse. 2. Describe the forms of child abuse. 3. Describe the treatment of child abuse. Content. Case study. What I remember most about my mother was that she was always beating me. She would beat me with her high-heeled shoes, with my father's belt, with his potato smasher. When I was 8, she black and blued my leg so badly, and I told her I would go to the police. She said, "Go. They will first put you in the darkest prison," so I stayed. When my breast started growing at 13, she beat me across the chest until I fainted. Then she would hug me and ask for forgiveness. Most kids have nightmares about being taken away from their parents. I would sit on our front porch crooning softly of going far, far away to find another mother. Time September 5, 1983. The above represents physical or psychological force by an adult on a child, often with the intention of hurting or destroying the child. 5 to 26% of children in the United States are physically abused each year. Surveys suggest that 1 of every 10 children is a victim of severe violence, such as being beaten or threatened with a knife or gun. Some observers believe that physical abuse and neglect are the leading cause of death among young children. Boys and girls are physically abused at approximately the same rate. Child abuse occurs in all socio-economic groups, and it is more common among the poor. Abusers are usually the parents. There are 2 forms of child abuse: psychological abuse and sexual abuse. Psychological abuse. This may include severe regression, excessive discipline, scapegoating and ridicule, isolation and refusal to provide help for a child with psychological problems. It probably accompanies all forms of physical abuse and neglect and often occurs by itself. Child sexual abuse. This is the use of a child for gratification of adult sexual desires. This may occur outside the home or within the home. Child sexual abuse appears to be equally common across all socio-economic classes, races, and ethnic groups. Surveys suggested that at least 13% of women were forced into sexual contact with an adult male during their childhood, many of them with their father or stepfather. At least 4% of men were also sexually abused during childhood. Therapies which help parents to develop insight into their behavior, provide training on alternatives to abuse, and also teach parenting skills have been used in treatment of child abuse. Other treatments help parents deal more effectively with the stress that often trigger the abuse, such as unemployment, marital conflict, and feelings of depression. Summary. Child abuse is a non-accidental use of excessive physical or psychological force by an adult on a child, often with the intention of hurting or destroying the child. Surveys suggested that 1 of every 10 children is a victim of severe violence, such as being kicked, beaten, hit, beaten, or threatened with a knife or gun. Some observers believe that physical abuse and neglect are the leading causes of death among young children. Boys and girls are physically abused at approximately the same rate. Abusers are usually the parents. There are 2 forms of child abuse: psychological abuse and sexual abuse. Psychological abuse may include severe rejection, excessive discipline, scapegoating and ridicule, isolation and refusal to provide help for a child with psychological problems. Child sexual abuse is the use of a child for gratification of adult sexual desires. Therapies are useful in treatment of child abuse. Post-test. 1. Child abuse is a problem that affects money. Dash. 2. What is child abuse? 3. Child abuse can lead to dash of a child. 4. Child abuse occurs in dash groups. 5. The abusers are usually dash. 6. The two forms of child abuse are dash and dash. 7. What is child sexual abuse? 8. Child abuse may occur dash. 9. Dash is useful in treatment of child abuse. 10. Other treatments help the parents to dash. End of study session 8. Thank you for listening.